Glenn Parker, High Vibration Foundation. You're watching Glenn TV. I wanted to do a review on the entire franchise of Mission Impossible. Why? Because I have watched every damn one of those. And I love them all. And really starting at the beginning, Peter Graves and the team, what's interesting about that is that Lucille Ball, yes, I Live Lucy, Desi Arnaz Studios, when she was one of the chief people running it, was one of the ones to greenlight Star Trek and Mission Impossibles for their pilots so that they could go on to be the blockbusters that they are today. So thank you, Lucille Ball, for your insight and going, damn, that's going to be a hit. And yes, you were right. So not only was she a comedic genius, a businesswoman, and just supposed to be like an overall fantastic person just to hang out with, she franchised two of my favorite shows, The Mission Impossible and Star Trek, which are just epic, like landslide franchises. So on with the show. I'm going to give you the different seasons that I've watched. I've watched all of them. The original Mission Impossible was like from 1966 and 1973. You had, for a couple years, Barbara Bain and Martin Landau were there up until like the fourth or fifth season. And then they kind of faded off. I don't know if they got too expensive, if they got other offers or what have you. I really couldn't find anything on that. And then Leonard Nimoy came on for a couple seasons. Now there's 7 seasons. 7 seasons or 8 seasons? I thought there was 8 seasons. 7 seasons altogether of the original. So you had Leonard Nimoy for a couple seasons. But what ended up happening is he only stayed because, and this was noted by Adam Nimoy, his son, which did a documentary. It's called For the Love of Spock. And I highly suggest watching that if you like Star Trek or if you just, have had if you want any insight into Leonard Nimoy at all. And they were saying that he loved it because it was very character driven. He could get in, he could dress up and really put himself and immerse himself into these characters. But the characters started to rotate where it was the same kind-ish of characters. It was this type of guy and that type of guy, like an Asian guy and this guy and a magic guy. And he started rotating back into those roles. He's like, it's getting stale. I want challenges. I'm Leonard Nimoy. So he went off to do his thing, and they brought in other cast members. But the thing that I really loved about the original series is that they are very story-driven. There are things blowing up. Maybe every once in a while you get a car chase. They didn't really have the budget for those things, but there's no CGI. So you have to run. The story has to keep your interest. There's no shit blowing up. There's no supercomputers that we would recognize, right? Like my phone could crush anything that you would see during that time era. And it's just like very well written and very well executed stories that have intrigue and sometimes don't take a direction. And they're also like getting into some political things as well and things that happen under those circumstances and ethics and these, these very critical types of things. So, and they get into love interest and how it might play out in these types of scenarios. But they really do play out some really compelling stories. And I would love to be a fly on the wall with like the story consultants that are like, feeding them information because, they have to have had some kind of background in shenanigans. So like in espionage or counter espionage or whatever it happened to be able to fill in the gaps of some of the story writers and what they were doing. So that's like the first segment. There's 7 seasons of the original Mission Impossible. It was on Netflix, and I started watching it. This took a long time in between a regular life, right? But that was finished, and then they rebooted it in 1988 to 1990. Peter Graves came back and they had a whole new team. So there's 2 extra seasons of Mission Impossible in the late 80s, and now he has a computer and it comes out of his little desk and things come up and you're like looking at the computer from a more contemporary standpoint and you're like, yeah, when my phone crashes it could still crush you. So it's like, but it was like a little different reboot. They tried a little bit different direction. They had a pretty good cast, but they never got any traction at that point in time. They just had lost their story edge, and I'm not sure how old Peter Graves was at that time. But I think he was like in his late 60s, 70s, maybe, I don't know, maybe a little older. But he still held up, and he did his part, and he was still running around a little bit, and he was like support. but it was nothing like the original Mission Impossible. So I consider that part of the original Mission Impossible. So I consider there to be 9 seasons of the original Mission Impossible, just a large interruption and hiatus in between the two of those. So if you're a fan of Mission Impossible, I highly suggest grinding those out. It's going to take you a while. But they used to be on Netflix. It fell off. You can get them a number of different ways. You can even buy them off eBay where they're like a whole package set. Now, on to the movies. I ended up just falling in love with the movies. A little bit more contemporary. I think the first one is 95, 96 for the first Mission Impossible. I think the casting is fantastic. But they didn't have the CG and the effects that they have now. And I'm not sure if they over-rely on those now. I still really liked the newer movies, but I still think the ones, like the first 2 or 3 were more story-driven, we're still like blowing crap up and, high-end computers and a lot more graphics and these very unique and different points of view for camera angles, that using a lot of CG and advanced cameras and drones and all these other really cool things you can have nowadays. But I think they've really, in the last couple of them, they've really lost their edge. But it doesn't matter how bad or how good they are, I'll still watch whatever comes out unless they just end up being like total rubbish for a couple. But I'd love to see another spin-off on a TV show, have it as a subgroup. And you're seeing this on tons and tons and tons of different types of movies have spun off, like Lethal Weapon has spun off into a TV show. I'm seeing all kinds of things. I don't watch them, but I'm going through and I'm like, wow, I go through my Netflix and Hulu and stuff like that. I really watch TV and I'm like, oh wow, there's a Lethal Weapon and there's this and there's that. And I love to see a Mission Impossible spin-off and even maybe have a main character help launch it. You wouldn't be able to get Tom Cruise or anything. I don't think you could have a budget for that for a TV show, but you'd probably get some sub-characters to come in and jumpstart it and play guest stars and stuff like that. I'd like to see that so that we could still have more Mission Impossible from the last hiatus and have another TV revival. That would be fantastic. So, in short, I'm not going to go into each individual story or anything. I just love it all as a franchise. I must have been a spy in a past lifetime or multiple lifetimes because I just dig a lot of this stuff. I love the intrigue. I like how do you keep the secrets and how do you pass it along? And the little weird things that they do to pass along information. I don't know. It was just always fascinating. When we were kids, we made, and a lot of kids do this, you make these little decoder things so that you can send messages back and forth that can be decoded by your friends. And nowadays you can do that crap on your phone, right? And a lot of other advanced utilities. But, we had, very simple, very low-tech ways of doing that back in the day. And we still had a key, and you needed the key. So if somebody found the key, then, oh well. And these things in the books back in the day when you would put little messages and have to go from pages and collect information and have your key and stuff like that. I don't know. I think it stemmed from that. I never started any of that, but I found one once, and it really fascinated me. So that's just my personal review on just the series. I'm not going to go into each individual movie. They all have their merits, and I think it is one whole franchise. It needs to be embraced over a lifetime because I don't know how many hours that is, but if you're averaging, let's say, 40 minutes, 45 minutes, and there's an average of 20 to 25 episodes per season, and there's 9 seasons, and then the 2 hours on average for each movie, probably more. That's a lot of TV watching, and that's expanded over years, to be able to have that. 'Cause that's how long it took me to do it. But I was very enriched for it, and I wanted to share that with you. And I think that's all I wanted to share as far as that. If you watch nothing else, if you're a Leonard Nimoy fan, get the Mission Impossible. Just go on IMDb, Internet and Movie Database, and find, I think it's season 5 and 6 or 6 and 7. And no, it's like 5 and 6. I think they left it's 6, 7, 5, 6. Find the episodes where the seasons where he's actually in it. So if you're a Leonard Nimoy fan and you don't really care about the rest of the cast, he was quite brilliant in it, and I would highly suggest watching those if you're a Star Trek fan or whatnot. Because it's really weird watching Spock run around and doing things little espionage things without his ears and all of that. Because most of us know him most from his role as Spock. So I would say If you're a fan of Leonard Nimoy, A, watch the documentary For Love of Spock, and it's done by his son, and they started it together. He did a crowdfunding campaign on that. It was almost $600 and something thousand because he needed so much money to go to Paramount to buy all of the rights for photos and stock footage and stuff like that. I think it was nearly $400,000 just to get all the stock footage from Paramount so that he could put it in it and do a proper documentary for distribution. So thank you very much for joining me, Glenn Parker, High Vibration Foundation, but you're watching Glenn TV. Coaching life, business, and spiritual. Also retreats, boys and girls. Spiritual retreats and business retreats by the beach. Yay! Where you can come out and actually learn business mathematics or SEO or web design, or if you want to like grind out something that you have, if you have a business, or if you want to start a business, if you want to look at your marketing efforts or what have you. We can go and do that, and it can be done in a very, very nice, posh location near the beach. And if you have any comments or questions below, please do. I'd love to hear your experience. What have you watched of Mission Impossible? Which, do you have favorite episodes of the TV series? Do you have, favorite characters anywhere in the franchise, in the movies, or whatnot? Bad guys? I mean, those are really good bad guys in some of the Mission Impossible, both TV and movies. So I'd love to hear from all of you, and any recommendations, too, of other movies that are, TV series that are kind of within this genre that would be of interest to go and watch. I would be open-minded and share with the group. So thank you very much for joining me. Glenn Parker, High Vibration Foundation. Yay! See you next time.